Linux is an operating system mostly associated with the Hackerman meme of Rami Malek, and loosely known for its utility of keeping the modern software ecosystem alive. The average Linux enjoyer, when not correcting me that it's actually GNU plus Linux, started their journey in the awareness phase. In this phase, you're basically just a normal human being, until you look into those mesmerizing penguin eyes and it changes the trajectory of your life. But that's a later problem. Whether you heard about Linux at your college classes, or when using the urinal of a shady bar, and a man in peculiar headwear comes to the stall right next to you, and whispers so softly in your ear, I use Arch by the way, fundamentally you're aware that Linux exists and may be aware of the benefits. But you're still gonna go home and boot up your spyware of choice. Whether it's America or China stealing your data to train LLMs, it doesn't really matter to you. You still want to live in the walled gardens of whatever psyop you choose. The worst case scenario in the awareness phase is that you subscribe to this mindset, and eventually your wife leaves you and you go on a downward spiral. Or by the stroke of some miracle from God, you become the normie. The normie uses Linux in some capacity. Maybe you're an engineer whose manager told them to go do AWS stuff. It would be a good learning experience, when in reality the last funding round didn't go so well, and now they can't afford an actual DevOps engineer. Or you're using it for my personal favorite reason, Penguin look cool. Whatever your reason, you're most likely on Mint or Pop OS, two completely fine distros. You're probably a pretty decent programmer or systems administrator. This is the most sensible and rational place to be if you're a Linux user. Here's the thing, normie has such a negative connotation around it that you're probably angry if you fall into this camp. But I mean, normies have it pretty good. Imagine not carrying the burden of how billion-dollar companies hijack your brain and the wider society around us. Normies have the best of both worlds. Penguin look cool, terminal look cool. This is the stage I recommend to anyone. Leave and forget the wider ecosystem. You still have a shot of living a relatively normal life, until you fall into the pipeline phase. Pipeliners are people that went a bit too far with Linux. And unfortunately, Linux has many pipelines you can fall into. You can start with the distro hopper. As hard as it is to believe, I was once young. Then I learned about distro hopping. Now I'm no longer young, nor do I like using Linux. Distro hopping is a chronic addiction suffered mostly by Linux users in their early stages of an existential crisis. In the beginning, it may manifest itself as a clever and practical way to learn about new systems and package managers. But eventually, the adrenaline of installing a new distro wears off, leaving the user to find the most intricate problems within the system to justify another fresh install. Eventually, the distro hopper does realize that most distros are just Ubuntu or Debian with a different desktop environment, but only after burning through 100 different distros and nitpicking every last core utility. It's at this point they enter the Ricer pipeline. The Ricer is an artist, and the desktop environment is their canvas. For most people, an operating system is a means to an end, a utility. For the Ricer, the main purpose of any distribution is to install as much software as they can to have the most interesting looking setup to post on r/UnixCorn. They gave up on useless things like system administration, programming, leaving the house, or having hobbies in favor of i3 gaps. I mean, can you blame them? The SOX pipeline. Many users, actually just Arch users, for reasons unknown tend to adopt these SOX. Now the final stage of being a Linux user, Gen 2. If you're in this camp, you're unlikely to be watching my videos. You're happy living off your farm and feeding your free and open source chickens. Every interaction with technology is accompanied by a firearm. So is every interaction with wider society. You definitely have the skills and capabilities of being a senior DevOps engineer, but you won't deal with most companies because they pay in fiat and not blockchain coin. This is the final stage of Linux usage, where you've not only given up on software, but society as a whole. You realize that we live in a world designed to be suboptimal. We must return as one, either to nature or to God, as a single omnipotent Linux user. My honest piece of advice is to get out while you're still a normie. But if you're dumb enough to fall for the wider pipeline, have you tried, I don't know, becoming smarter? By trying out the sponsor of today's video, Brilliant.org. Brilliant is a learning platform with thousands of lessons on math and science. Brilliant does an excellent job of introducing you to new scientific concepts, but most importantly, it helps you recognize patterns, which in any profession focused on problem solving can give you a real leg up. I personally use Brilliant on my commute on the way to work, and it's been amazing to set up a new learning habit. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/bigboxsuite or scan the QR code on screen. Or you can click the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thank you so much to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and thank you for your time. I am Big Box.